Hey guys, LeAnna here. Welcome to my channel, and on today's episode of Berry Week, I'm going to share with you my first postpartum period and how that went and how it kind of felt. Because I know that I didn't really kind of research into it. I just kind of heard other moms talk about it, and I didn't even really think about it because I wasn't sure when my period would return, but I was anticipating having an irregular cycle. So before I go into today's topic, don't forget to hit subscribe below and leave a little comment if you are wondering what's going to happen on your first postpartum period, or if you have a story to share about yours, please leave it in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your story. I'm gonna do the tea on my first postpartum period. Yes, so I made boba. This is not purchased out anywhere. I actually made this at home, and I will show you guys how I did it on a vlog that's hopefully going up this Friday. What was my birthday? It's my birthday actually today that I'm filming, not today when this is up. It'll have already been a couple of days since then, but I'll show you guys how I make boba. Oh, excuse me, I got boba in my mouth. My period returned at 15 weeks postpartum. I did breastfeed a little bit in the beginning. It was kind of sporadic. I am going to vlog on my whole breastfeeding formula kind of journey because I think it's an important topic to talk about. So make sure that you are subscribed and hit the little bell so you'll know when I upload that video. In a nutshell, I did try to breastfeed. It didn't work for a whole numerous reasons, but I did kind of sporadically get him to latch and also pump. So I don't know if that's why my period kind of took so long to come back. Maybe not. However, I always tell people that breastfeeding is not a reliable source of birth control because it is a huge myth out there that if you're breastfeeding or exclusively breastfeeding that you cannot get pregnant. Now there is a specific method, and I can't remember the name of it. It's like a something with the like lacto or lactation in the name, that there is a method of birth control surrounding exclusively breastfeeding. However, there are very, very strict rules to it. You have to stick to a certain breastfeeding schedule. You have to be breastfeeding a certain amount of time. You have like all these kind of rules, and it can't be like, oh, I'm mixing food and breast milk. Like that doesn't work either. I don't know enough about it. You'll have to research that on your own. But in general, I try to tell people that breastfeeding is not a reliable form of birth control because you are waiting to see the return of your period. You're like, oh, well then I'm fertile again. No, you were actually fertile a couple weeks before that when you ovulated. So there's a lot of women out there who get pregnant before they even see the return of their cycle because they're waiting to start bleeding again. But in order to start bleeding, you're actually fertile again. So that's why doctors are really, really, really stress you out and asking you for birth control, because I know I was asked like when I was like I had my son and they were literally like wheeling me out of the OR going, hey, have you thought about birth control? I'm like, dude, I just had a baby, like why are you asking me these questions? But that's why they're so tough on it. One of the first things I did notice when it was after my postpartum bleed, obviously it was return of flow for me, because I used the fertility awareness method for my birth control. I was already kind of familiar with the topography down there, so to speak. I already knew what I was like. So it was interesting to me because I didn't have a vaginal delivery. I had a unplanned C-section, which I did vlog about last week. I'll put that in the eye and in the description box below if you're curious to hear that story. And I didn't have a vaginal delivery, but still everything kind of shifted down there. So it's kind of like a myth that like, yeah, you might not tear, but stuff is still gonna kind of shift and change around because you were growing a tiny human inside of you. So right off the bat, I noticed that things had changed, and I was wanting to use my menstrual cup because I had been using my menstrual cup for like 2-3 years by this point. So I got out my old trusty Diva cup, which I still love. I'm not like against cup, like any of the cup brands. I'm not like against them or anything, but I had a little trouble getting it in the first time because, like I said, things changed down there. But I got it in, I got it to pop open, and I'm like, okay. I did experience some leaking at that point, but that was not from the cup. That's not the cup's fault. That was my fault because of the fact that I needed a different cup. And I also found out the hard way that the Diva cup was too firm for me. And how did I find that out? When I went to go take it out. Like, yeah, that was not pleasant to say the least, and that's when I had to go and find a different cup. I asked around in a lot of my cup groups, and I actually took the quiz on putacupinit.com. They have an amazing quiz. They're gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions, and then they'll give you a cup recommendation after it. And that's usually where I tell people to start off if you're gonna look for menstrual cups. So go head on over there. I'll try to link it down below. And so based on their recommendations and everybody else, I actually went and bought the LeAnna Sensitive size 2. They usually recommend a size 2 cup for people who've had kids. Not always accurate. I know a lot of women use still the size 1 cups and they have multiple kids, but they generally say start off with the 2 if you've had kids. So, and I noticed that I didn't leak once I figured it out. So on the cycle itself, I'll talk about more about the cup here in a second, but on the cycle itself, it was probably the worst cramping I've had with a period since before I started the pill. So like when I was a teenager and your reproductive system is still kind of like figuring out life, because when you first start when you first have menarche, your first period, for like the next 3 to 4 years, your system is still growing, which is why hormonal birth control can actually alter your growth, because you're still maturing and growing. But these cramps felt very similar to that, and I was prepared to have them kind of be painful because I'd kind of seen that online, like other women talking about it, but I wasn't quite prepared for it. And I actually did end up taking like pain medication for it, which I don't take for my period because I just don't need it. So it was a doozy. Now I know it's not going to be for everybody, but this is just my experience. It was a lot of pain, and I did notice that in the beginning there was a little bit more blood than I normally would bleed, which is fine because it was like really the first 2 periods, I would say. The second one wasn't quite as intense as the first, but it was still not my normal. And then by like the 3rd period on, even up until now, they're back to my new normal essentially, because they are a little bit different from before I had my son. That my cycles are a little bit they're longer, and my ovulation day is like actually a couple of days earlier than it normally would be, so which is kind of interesting to me. If you nerd out like I do, I thought that was fascinating. My flow itself would actually change. It would do this thing, whereas before it was kind of like it would start and it would get heavy and then it would kind of taper off. That'd be it, right? Well, this one, it would be like heavy and then it would kind of come down. So like on the 3rd or 4th day, I'd say, I'm changing my cup in the morning going, oh, there's hardly anything in it. So like the first, I'd say 2 periods, maybe 3, because I was still having cup issues, which I'll talk about in a second. I was like, oh, okay, it must be slowing down because maybe this is the new norm. And so I took it out and I can't remember if I didn't put a cloth pad down or if I did and that was a mistake, because it just came right back and I was like, oh my gosh. And nothing wrong with cloth pads or cloth panties. I prefer the menstrual cup. And so I was like, okay, so you're a trickster now. That does tend to happen. And it's not like I'm spotting and then restarting, because that would obviously be a hormonal issue. It's more of just, I don't know, it's only at night. It's only at night too. So I don't know, because I know it's not how that works with laying down and everything, but maybe it's like just less active. I don't know. It's not quite spotting, but it's like a lighter flow, if that makes any sense. And then it kind of comes back with not to heavy, but like more of like a heavy light or a low medium, and then we'll go back off. I don't really spot. It just kind of ends. To my cup issues, because I know a lot of you out there might have this kind of issue, is I was working with the Diva Cup in the beginning before my son. I had no learning curve with it, got it right away, it was amazing. Now postpartum, too firm of a cup and it was too small, so I got the LeAnna sensitive size 2, as I said earlier, and the cup was great. However, I was used to a firm cup that popped open really easily, and the LeAnna sensitive is obviously not going to be quite as firm because that's why it's sensitive. And so it took me probably 3 or 4 cycles, quite honestly, until I kind of had an idea of how to get this thing to pop open, because I inserted it like how I would my Diva Cup, and it just either wouldn't insert, or I think I would have it inserted right, or I think it would be opening all the way, and it just wasn't. And I mean, I was in the bathroom for like 30-40 minutes one night when my son was asleep trying to figure out this cup, because I'm like, this is driving me nuts and I'm not gonna not use a cup like this. It's something I'm doing. I troubleshooted it. I went online, I looked at all these tutorials. I'm gonna have my Diva Cup right here. I normally would do the C fold, where you just push it down and it looks like a letter C, but then I saw a trick from, I think it was Precious Star Pads, where you actually just did the C fold, but then you flipped it the other way before inserting it, and for some reason that worked magic. So between that and I do kind of like a little squat hula hoop kind of dance thing, and that finally for some reason gets my cup to pop open. So that's the story of my first period after having my son. I'll say my cycles return to normal, like I said, after like the first 2. My body tends to bounce back pretty quickly. I did talk about coming off hormonal birth control or why I quit the pill. I'll put that in the eye and the description box below. Everything's back to normal, or my new normal now, and I'm like clockwork. Yeah, on a quick note before I let you guys go, I am so thankful that I chart. I use the fertility awareness method, also known as the symptothermal method, which if you're wondering what the heck that is, I actually did a little quick video on that. Put it in the eye, I'll put it in the description box below. And I'm so thankful that I did that, because I know my body. So it was interesting to me to see pre having my son and post having my son and kind of comparing the two and seeing how my cycles changed and how everything just kind of changed. Even my temperature, my basal body temperature is actually different. It's actually a little bit, I'd say, higher now. That's what I got for you guys today. If you have any questions surrounding your first postpartum period, please leave them below, or if you feel like you're not really comfortable up for that, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or I don't think Pinterest allows. Yeah, they do have direct messaging. I was gonna say, please feel free to DM me or PM me or anything like that. I'm always happy to talk periods, menstruation, birth control, anything like that. I'll talk to complete strangers, so don't feel weird if you think, oh, I'm a stranger, she won't want to talk to me about that. Nope, that's wrong. I'll talk to anybody about it. Ask anybody. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe below and click the little notification bell so you know every time I upload new videos, which is every Tuesday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have all my social media links linked down below, and I will see you guys on Friday. Bye.